going to where you're going to have a lot of the storm anyways. We saw that with Hurricane Ian, so just be mindful of that. But again, you don't have to go hundreds of miles. That is not required. Any place that's going to be open as a shelter, Florida hotels that are built, within the last however many 20, 30 years are all going to be able to withstand hurricane force winds. Sandbag locations are open in multiple counties in South and Central Florida. Check your county's EM page to find out where those locations are. You can find your county's emergency management page by going to floridadisaster.org/counties, floridadisaster.org/counties, and you have that local EM page that will tell you about any local evacuation orders that are made. But know your zone, know where you are. The bad thing about having a storm right on top is we have these logistical challenges. The one thing people have with Helene, they know if they got a lot of storm surge with Helene, very well may get even more with this storm. So don't mess with the storm surge and do what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. We're going to be continuing to work around the clock here at the Emergency Operations Center. We're doing all the things that we would normally do, but then obviously we have this debris removal mission that we've dived into to be able to help these local communities that have all this. It's going well, but we need to keep doing on that. Okay, Kevin Guthrie will come up and give an update.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for once again supporting the division, the State Emergency Response Team, as we respond to Hurricane Milton. The State Emergency Response Team continues to work on more than 600 mission requests received from our counties. Residents should begin finalizing your disaster plans, and if your plan calls for you to evacuate, you should do so today. Many of the counties are going to issue their evacuation orders today. Some of them, for example, Pasco County, will start at 10 a.m. this morning. Others will be Pinellas County, I believe, at 2 p.m. this afternoon, and still others will have varying times. You may ask why the varying times. Each county's population is factored into that, so the clearance times is what they will be making those decisions based on. So those evacuation orders will be going out today. I would highly recommend, if anybody has the means to do so, you have the capability of going to a hotel, staying with friends and families, get on the road today, wherever that might be. There's hoteling in Orlando. If you are 100% going to need to be dependent on power and you have the means to do so, you may want to consider a Jacksonville. It's likely that Jacksonville will not experience any type of power outage. So if you've got to be guaranteed power and you have the financial means, you may want to consider something a little bit further away. However, for those that do not, shelters will be opening. We recommend that you start moving towards a shelter. Shelter capacity will be limited. You heard the governor say that we are going to work on supplemental sheltering. We have identified state buildings. We have identified vacant buildings across the entire footprint of Florida that we will be opening up additional shelters when school buildings and other shelters, traditional shelters, start to reach their capacity. Many of you may need to resupply your disaster supply kit. Again, that is a today thing. You need to be doing that today. If you get to a shelter, there will be food and water there. It will not be sit down eating. It will be shelf stable meals. It would be more of the type of material or food that you're used to seeing at a point of distribution, but we will have food and water. If you have access for functional needs and have not registered with the Florida Special Needs Registry, you need to do that this morning. They've already started, cities and counties have already started call downs of their special needs registry to ensure that those individuals have a ride to the closest special needs shelter. If you depend on medication or electricity to use your medical devices, your area is called to evacuate, you need to do so. You may lose power and there will be no way to use your medical devices. Make sure that's a part of your plan. The National Hurricane Center released new storm surge values as of 8 a.m. this morning. They issued a special advisory at 9 that the governor's already talked about, where the hurricane force winds are now Category 4. However, I'm going to draw your attention to something we did for you this morning. Everybody likes visuals. 5 feet and 10 feet. The ceiling in here is 10'8". We're talking about storm surge values higher than the ceiling. Please, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you need to evacuate. If they have called for your evacuation order, I beg you, I implore you to evacuate. Drowning deaths due to storm surge are 100% preventable if you leave. We had situations where people died of drowning in Hurricane Ian. Had they just gone across the bridge from Estero Bay, Sanibel Island, and so on, just across the bridge to the first available shelter that had capacity, they'd still be alive today. Please remember that counties will call for these evacuation orders, and we will likely be seeing those today, as I've already mentioned. If you need to evacuate, we want you to evacuate out, not up. After I made the comment last night, my brother-in-law called me and said, in fact, for Hurricane Helene, we have 380 elevators that are not working in the greater Tampa Bay area. Elevators are going to go down. You're not going to be able to get down the elevators. If you are dependent on elevator usage versus stairs, you need to make that a part of your evacuation plan. If you cannot get down those stairs, you need to evacuate. Evacuate out, not up. You can visit floridadisaster.org/no to determine if you live in an evacuation zone. Your gas tank and electric vehicle only need to be halfway full. Get the gas, get as much as you need to get to where you're going. If you're in an evacuation zone, you need evacuation assistance, please call this number, 1-800-729-3413. That's 1-800-729-3413. That's for all residents. We have people there to answer your questions, and we can help you get out of your evacuation zone if you need additional assistance. The state has activated the State Assistance Information Line, also known as the SAIL line. If you need information, again, information only on resources. They cannot get you people, but if you need to ask a question, that is what the SAIL line is for. 1-800-342-3557. Again, that's 1-800-342-3557. We have English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole waiting to help you out. Additional preparedness resources can be found at floridadisaster.org/updates. Make sure you follow us on X, Instagram, at FLSERT, and on Facebook at FDEM, as we are sharing updates in real time. Please make sure that you have a way to receive alerts. Make sure that you see all the additional information at your county emergency management agency at floridadisaster.org/counties. And again, thank you, Governor, for your continued support and partnership.
Thanks, Jared.
All right. Thank you, Governor, and good morning. We have continued to respond to Hurricane Helene and also ramped up our efforts to prepare for Hurricane Milton. To date, FDOT has removed nearly 180,000 cubic yards of debris statewide. And as you heard from Governor DeSantis, we've taken the mission of removing as much as debris as possible before Milton makes landfall very serious. We've mobilized every available state asset and resource to do just this. It's been a partnership between FDOT, DEM, Florida Department of Agriculture, the National Guard, and the State Guard. We have a lot of people on the ground. We have a lot of equipment on the ground. We have continued to remove debris. It is really important that everybody understand we're in this thing together. As you heard from the governor, we saw a lot of private property owners bringing debris to landfills throughout the night last night. We highly encourage that. Every little bit of debris that gets removed counts and gets us to our goal and helps us fulfill that mission. We are calling on all of our local governments, local municipalities, and debris vendors and contractors. If you have available resources and available assets, please deploy those. Join us, join state employees and our asset deployment of all of our equipment to remove debris in Pinellas, Manatee specifically, where they were hit hard by Helene. This is a very important mission. We're all in this together. We need everybody to mobilize their resources and assets. As you've heard from the governor throughout the day yesterday, we moved a lot of debris. We're going to continue working until it's no longer safe to do so. And our goal, again, is to remove as much debris as we can possibly remove before Hurricane Milton makes landfall. As you heard from the governor, we are preparing to suspend tolls effective at 10:30 a.m. this morning for West Florida, Central Florida, and Alligator Alley to help facilitate those evacuations. We have seen people begin to leave already, which is a good thing. You need to leave early. If you're within those low-lying areas where storm surge could impact you, the earlier you leave, the better. It's going to help with traffic. It's going to help with evacuations, and it will make your trip a lot easier. We've seen increased volumes on I-75 and I-4. We're continuing to watch traffic live with our 10 regional traffic management centers across the state. They operate 24/7. We've increased the number and frequency of our Road Ranger Service Patrol and Motorist Aid to facilitate those evacuations. They do have the ability to aid motorists with fuel, water, and also remove stranded or idle vehicles out of the travelway. We've also prepared our shoulders for what we call emergency shoulder use. As volumes pick up and speeds lower for the interstate facilities, we then begin to implement what's known as emergency shoulder use, and we open up the shoulders of our interstates for live traffic. We do that when the speeds get down to around 40 miles per hour. We have a partnership with Florida Highway Patrol, and they go out there, the troopers go out there live real time and assist people in getting on the shoulder to help relieve congestion. We've used this in multiple storms. We used it for Hurricane Irma. We used it for Hurricane Ian. It was very successful. And so we're prepared and ready to do that as volumes continue to pick up. A lot of rain has already fallen across the state of Florida. The ground is saturated. More rain is anticipated to fall before Hurricane Milton makes landfall. So in terms of transportation, we are anticipating a vegetative debris event. We're ramping up our resources for cut and toss and clearing roads. We're preparing all of our drainage structures and drainage systems, cleaning those out. We encourage all of our local governments, our counties, local municipalities to do the same thing so that we can get roads back open as quickly as possible. We're watching very closely our bridges and low-lying roads in coastal areas, and also our bridges and low-lying roads around rivers, creeks, and streams inland with the amount of rainfall that's coming in. We're going to be prepared to deploy damage assessment teams and effect emergency temporary repairs immediately after the storm passes through based on what we see and find. We're staging generators for traffic signal power. We're staging pumps for potential flooding, and we're going to be ready to roll and ready to respond as soon as Hurricane Milton passes through. We're committing every possible and available resource to respond to this storm. We've had over 2,000 FDOT employees actively responding to Hurricane Helene. They're going to continue working through Hurricane Milton. We are committed to getting the job done, and we're going to make sure it happens. If you need information on traffic, fl511.com is the place to get traffic information. It is updated live, real time by our traffic management centers. A lot of times during emergency preparedness and response, the third-party navigation apps sometimes don't have all of the accurate information. fl511.com is the place to get traffic information. Thank you, Governor.
Okay, so we're ramping up, but we've been ramping up all weekend. We've got a massive amount of resources that are have been mobilized, that are continue to be mobilized, including this debris mission, which we think is critical. But also just say this is a storm. When these hurricanes make landfall, they obviously will weaken some, but it's projected to leave the Florida Peninsula on the east coast of Florida still as a hurricane. So it isn't like this is going to be something where it hits as a hurricane and ends up more of just a tropical system by the time it leaves the state. It's going to remain a hurricane at some level all the way through exiting on the east coast of Florida. And again, we don't have a guaranteed track in terms of where this thing's going to make landfall. You're talking about 50 miles north, 50 miles south. That'll make a huge difference in terms of where you have the most significant impacts. And there's just no way to know right now where exactly that's going to be. And so that's why anybody on the west coast of, and then if you are in the path of this on the interior part of Florida, you're going to get some strong winds. It isn't like it's just going to be a rainstorm. I mean, all the way until it exits the state, it's going to be powerful. So please take the appropriate precautions, listen to your local officials, and we'll get through this. We'll respond very quickly, but this does have the potential to have a lot of damage. Okay.
Governor, are you still anticipating this to be the largest evacuation since Irma in like 2017?
It's hard to know exactly. I mean, I think Irma, there was a lot of people that got on the road and then they had to go back and so it was a little bit different, I think, situation here. Here we know that if you are in an area on the Florida Peninsula on the west coast of the state that is vulnerable to storm surge, you're likely going to be under some type of an evacuation order. Certainly anywhere in that center part of the state, west central Florida, as you get down to Bradenton, Sarasota, Charlotte, Pasco, all those areas are going to have evacuation orders for sure. So it is going to be a significant number of people. We'll see exactly how that shakes out, but it's a major issue because of we have a storm that could hit in different spots. I mean, that's just the reality that we're dealing with. I mean, if we knew exactly where it was going to hit, you probably would evacuate fewer people, but we don't know that. And as we saw with Hurricane Ian, there was a thought a couple days before it was going to hit one place. It ended up hitting much further south. So in this storm, even though a lot of the models track it somewhere in that Sarasota, Bradenton, Tampa Bay area right now, and maybe that's what ends up happening, it potentially could hit further north. It potentially could hit further south. So just knowing that and knowing the range of storm surge that you're dealing with, you're going to see a lot of evacuation orders.
No deaths were reported in Taylor County with Helene. The sheriff says this because everyone evacuated, those communities were level. Talk about the importance of people listening to those evacuation orders.
Well, Taylor County had more storm surge and even is being predicted for this storm at this point. I mean, you had 15, maybe even 20 feet in some of those areas. So you had homes that withstood Hurricane Idalia, which was hit as a category 3. It was a 4 in the water, and then it hit as a 3 and survived it fine. And then on Helene, they were totally wiped off the map.
Truly hope that everyone here who's on the West Coast, especially in particular through the Tampa Bay area, that you are listening to officials and you are getting to a safe place. This is enhanced satellite just over the last couple of hours. I mean, this storm is incredible. Here's the eye, where you can see it, that pinhole eye, just about 5 miles across, but the intensity continues to grow. Now we have that pure donut structure with all of that deep thunderstorm development, strong winds that continue to get stronger as we look at how this storm is now up around 180 miles an hour. Visible satellite earlier today, too. I mean, that pinhole eye is just incredible. It's mesmerizing to watch. Pushing off to the east at around 10 miles per hour or so. Unfortunately, the dirty side to this storm is going to be swiping through the Yucatan as we go through about the next 12 to 15 hours as this storm begins to shift through the southern Gulf of Mexico. Here's as the 8 o'clock advisory, 180 mile an hour winds. Pressure is what's most important. 897 millibar, making a run up at one of the strongest storms in recorded history. I mean, when you think about that, the vastness of that is just incredible. Pushing off to the east, I mean, this thing is a monster. It's slowly chugging through. The overall structure of this eye, now it is going through, as per the National Hurricane Center, anticipating through tonight an eye wall replacement cycle. So what does that mean? Well, that eye is trying to get a bit bigger. And with that happening, the storm itself is expected to grow in size. So you might see in the next couple advisories as we go through the day tomorrow that the strength of this storm, which sits at the top of the scale, Cat 5, could begin to waver some, but don't pay attention to that, truly. I mean, Category 5 is incredible, but with this storm undergoing eye wall replacement, growing in size, even if it weakens slightly, that is the worst case scenario. A bigger storm on landfall means more people are certainly going to be feeling the impacts of this. So we'll continue to follow what the National Hurricane Center puts out. Now, the hurricane hunters, they continue to fly through the storm. In fact, I believe they're about to make a pass through that northeastern quadrant. So we're going to get those messages and that data coming in real time as we go through the next couple of hours. And some of that could be quite staggering given what we know with this storm. But here's the wind history. I mean, just where we were yesterday at this time, Cat 1 hurricane, And now we sit at an explosive Cat 5. The rate intensification has just been incredible. Pressure history, you can see how we bottomed out now well under 905, hitting officially at 897. Rapid intensification timeline. So Wilma has been, one of the top to scale. Cat 1 to Cat 5 in just 18 hours. You had winds that increased by 138 miles an hour. As far as Felix goes, getting into the top spot or the top 2 spot there, Cat 1 to Cat 5, that happened in about a day. With Milton, this storm, incredible. Cat 1 to Cat 5, 135 miles an hour in 24 hours. Florida's Gulf Coast preparing for Milton's impact, but 2 years after Hurricane Ian's catastrophic hit, Fort Myers residents are still picking up the pieces. Now, mandatory evacuation orders are in place for zones A and B. Fox weather correspondent Robert Ray was in Fort Myers Beach earlier, which has been completely evacuated under mandatory orders, with more on the situation there.
No matter whether or not we're 2 years removed, you could see behind me as the sun is going down, some of the destruction that still exists, and yet there is hope as they are rebuilding, but they're nowhere near the full rebuilding process here on Fort Myers Beach. And that's what scares everyone so much about this system coming in that could bring up to 10 feet of storm surge and that catastrophic wind field. I mean, just in the past 2 months, Tropical Storm Debbie, we look at this video that didn't even make a direct hit here, sent in 2 to 4 feet of storm surge, inundating businesses, homes, the beach, and roadways. And then, 10 days ago, Hurricane Helene that brushed this area as well, and then made landfall up in the Big Bend and the Nature Coast, also brought in storm surge and some gusty winds. And so they can't catch a break here by any means in Southwest Florida. Having said all of that, people were out today before the mandatory evacuation that started at 3 p.m. They were filling up sandbags. They were making sure that all of the windows and the doorways were cordoned off and wood was put, or even pieces of metal on businesses and homes. In the meantime, hurricane warnings are up from Naples all the way north of Tampa, and the surge could be historic as this Category 5 storm Milton is churning out in the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, tonight, it could be designated as the biggest hurricane ever to go over the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we think that it's going to decrease as it makes landfall, but that doesn't make any difference on the impacts, as it will likely get wider, unfortunately. I've been talking to people all day on the ground here in Fort Myers Beach about their fears and what their plan is. Listen.
After Ian, I'm scared. I'm very afraid.
Do you think that people are going to evacuate and heed the orders of that?
Yes, I do. After Ian, they are. As soon as I get my shutters up and my sandbags in, I'm probably out of here myself because I can't live through that again. It's going to be bad enough coming back to the devastation.
It's really tough to see the heartbreak in all the people, and we're hoping this one passes us by.
So we've had the house here on Ohio Avenue for 20 years. We love this place. And we just finished rebuilding it about 9 months ago after Ian. And hopefully this one the story isn't quite told on the path. So preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Yeah, meanwhile, thousands of people have evacuated the shorelines, and they are on I-75 heading north out of Florida, hopefully to safe ground and where they'll find a hotel, I hope. The Atlanta metro, many of those suburbs in Atlanta opening up temporary shelters for people and guiding them if they need somewhere to stay. 5,000 National Guard members are on the ground here by order of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and they are waiting to help out in the aftermath. Up in Tropicana Field, which is in Tampa, where the Major League Baseball Rays play. They put out cots, and utility workers are up there sleeping, as well as first responders. There will likely be mass power outages and catastrophic damage as Milton comes in. In the meantime, if you're listening to this, if you're thinking about retreat or leaving this area and you have the means to do it and you live too close to where surge might come in and you don't have a safe place, maybe your structure is not safe enough for the wind field, please get in your car and go. This is nothing to mess with. This could be potentially one of the most historic hurricanes to ever hit the United States of America.
You heard Robert there, and storm surge is one of the biggest calling cards for this storm and is truly going to be life-threatening, devastating, hard to really truly put into words what ultimately could come of this on the west coast of Florida. Nothing like anyone has ever seen, especially in the Tampa Bay area. You get down the coast there, we were just looking at Sarasota. We have those warnings up for the entire west coast, just off to the north of Cedar Key, down to the point there. Storm surge watches, too, in place for parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, northeast Florida, because as the storm begins to pull away, you have to keep in mind that we're going to see that shift in that wind direction. So we're going to watch as that push starts to encroach onto those communities and into those areas. I was listening to Robert mention a lot of those areas that are opening up their doors for people who are trying to evacuate and get to safety. Georgia, neighboring Georgia being one of those areas, the Atlanta Motor Speedway, they're putting out those posts saying, come to us, we will take care of you. Because the thing is, we're really in that time slot right now, that window where unfortunately getting to hotels might be quite difficult. So you have to find a shelter that can take you in. Up to 15 feet of storm surge is the worst case scenario for the Tampa Bay area. You get up towards the Big Bend, up to 10 feet into Cedar Key. Down the coast, though, truly, this is the worst of where we're likely going to feel the impacts from Milton. Tampa down through Fort Myers. Because you have to imagine as that storm comes in, we're going to see that push and that whip of those winds as it cuts across the Florida Peninsula. It is just mind-boggling to think that these areas have been already so much stress and so much pressure. We had Helene that took a parallel path to the shore in Tampa, had up to 7 feet of storm surge. We're nearly doubling that and then some in an area that is so vulnerable. Listen to those evacuation orders. They are in place for a reason, and I know that officials are trying to get you to safety. Milton has its eyes on Florida's Gulf Coast with dangerous, life-threatening impacts. We're breaking down the storm's hazards and timing when we come back. Stay with us.
Updates to talk about the hurricane. Hunters have now left the storm and they're beginning to fly away. I don't know if they're going to do another recon of it or not of the current aircraft at least. But nothing right now. The latest update from the Hurricane Center, I think our next update comes around 11. We're still at 180 mile an hour sustained, 897 millibars. I think they still have the same rough intensity upon landfall. They're still the rough forecast is still right around. World is happening. Still expecting it to be high-end Category 3. High-end Cat 3 right around 125, I think.
There are some models that are a little bit further to the south. The problem with landfall right there over Pinellas County is that
many weeks, right? Here we go again.
And the governor said earlier that the debris operators, they're picking up, they will be operating 24/7 until tropical storm force winds start.
Saw police escorted dump trucks. You don't see that very often. Cranes down at the beach lifting boats up. We just got the very latest in from the National Hurricane Center. They are now forecasting 10 to 15 feet of surge for Pinellas County.
Whoa.
That's twice what we saw during Helene. All right, 180 mile per hour winds. It will not have that wind when it gets here. Okay, that's very impressive. It will not, but it will have about 125, 130. That's the forecast. So here it is now. You can see it down there, way down by the Yucatan. Just a very impressive storm. Recon's been in there. They're figuring out the data. That's all going into models. It's really going to help us get a better point about where this thing is going. But it's coming in this direction. So now we have the hurricane warnings for the entire area in West Central Florida. That goes all the way out, includes Orlando. In fact, it goes over the East Coast. Notice the winds here.
It's going. It's going to move right through there. Land, I would say, to probably like 80 miles an hour there. Northport by US 41. So yeah, that's a good question. So there's not going to be as much rain in this storm, period, anywhere. Ian was moving much more slowly. The northern eye wall of Ian had 20 plus inches of rain, and that was a 1 in a 1,000-year flood. This system's going to be moving a lot faster. It's going to be moving at least 20 miles an hour when it moves through. There's going to be up to a foot of rain in some places. There's going to be street flooding, but I don't think it's going to be in Northport. In fact, I can show you that. Let me show you that right here. The models have been consistently saying that as the storm comes in, the heaviest rain, notice the heaviest rain as it moves in is located north of the storm. There's heavy rain on the south side, but it's a lot more scattered, a lot more intermittent, and it's not nearly as steady. Look from Clearwater and Tampa north, though. Steady, heavy for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. That's where we're going to see the foot of rain, north of the bay. South of the bay, it's going to be more intermittent, and that's not going to be much of it. There might be some flooding, but I think the worst flooding is going to be on the north side of this system. And yes, it could be a foot. And yes, that could inundate homes inland. So if you think to yourself, well, I'm not going to see storm surge, my house is strong enough for the winds, just be aware that you may still see water in your home and in your neighborhood, because a foot of rain in a matter of a few hours, that could cause some serious flooding. All right, I'm gonna refresh this. I'm gonna take questions for another probably 5 minutes or so, and then I got to start getting ready for our 10 o'clock show and our 11 o'clock show tonight. And I do appreciate everyone who's on this stream right now. Should we leave Lakewood Ranch and Parish? So Lakewood Ranch has some solid homes. Those are all mostly new homes, right? So if you're in a solid home, you don't have to. But I would venture to say that the strongest winds are going to be south of the eye. So it's going to get scary in Lakewood Ranch. You're going to have those wind gusts that probably get to 110, 120 miles an hour. And I don't know, being in a home in the middle of the night when the winds are 120 miles an hour, just think about that. If you have gusts that are constant, you're worried about the trees above you, you're worried about your roof, 120 mile an hour winds, are you okay with that? Because I think your house, your walls will survive. Again, most homes in Lakewood Ranch are new. If you live in one of those newer homes, you'll probably be okay. But a compromised roof and scary just listening to that wind outside for 6 hours, which could be gusting over 100 miles an hour on and off for, at least 4 of those hours. Just be aware of that. Newport Richey east of 19. You don't have to evacuate there, but you'll have to understand that there are going to be gusts to 90 or 100 miles an hour there, but you don't have to leave because the water is not likely to get to you unless you're told to. If the storm changes, its tune moves a little further north, then yes, Newport Richey, even in a zone D, may have to evacuate. But just keep tuned to us, and we'll keep you updated as to the latest track. East Lake area. So East Lake is up near Tarpon Springs, Citrus Park, and in between Western Hillsborough, and it's in eastern Pinellas County and right near the border of Pasco County. So take a look at the storm. If it takes this track, look at all that heavy rain. So heavy rain for hours and hours, could be a foot of rain in East Lake. And I think you're in the northern eye wall, so you're going to probably see some gusts past 110 miles an hour in East Lake. If in Pinellas, not in a flood zone, you need to worry about the wind. Yeah, some of these questions are so long. I would say this, if you're putting a question on here, make it like 6 words or less, because they're scrolling so fast that I start reading a question and then it's gone. Somebody asked about Ellington. I don't know. I look, Ellington's where the mall is. It's pretty close to the water. I think you just have to evaluate what zone of evacuation you're in. If they tell you to evacuate, you need to evacuate. And I think some of the strongest winds will be in Ellington. So if you're kind of contemplating and you don't feel like your home is structurally stable, then you probably have to leave Ellington. Okay. Like I said to you before, the general rule of thumb is we run from the water and we don't run from the wind. But in this particular case, people already started evacuating today. There's lots of traffic. A lot of people are going to evacuate tomorrow. And there even be a few people on Wednesday morning, although I wouldn't recommend it, that try to leave on Wednesday morning. So I think this evacuation is going to be spread out over a long enough time so that even people who aren't ordered to evacuate will still be able to leave and not completely clog the roads. What we're always worried about is telling everyone to evacuate. I'm not telling everyone to evacuate. That is not a good idea. That would cause problems. We have 3.1 or 3.2 million people in the Tampa Bay area. And by the way, the last time we had a major hurricane strike here, we had 100,000 people living in the Bay Area. Just to give you an idea of the difference, we have 30 times more people than we used to have. All right. Town and Country. Charles, I have a producer who lives in Town and Country. He flooded during that big storm we had a few nights ago, that big thunderstorm. If you're in Town and Country and the storm, and it looks like the storm's headed into Tampa Bay, you have to leave Town and Country. It is just too low. You got to go. How long will we see the hurricane stay in each area? About 6 hours. Hurricane force winds, Gus, you can expect them for about 6 hours, okay? The tropical storm force wind gusts will probably last for a little bit more than 12 hours. So figure 12 hours of tropical storm force wind gusts, maybe slightly longer, and 6 hours of solid hurricane force wind gusts. Carmen, solar panels, Port Charlotte. If you're asking if your solar panels will be okay, I don't know. I've always wondered about that myself. Port Charlotte, the way it stands right now, you'll be on the outer edge of the strongest winds, but I do think Port Charlotte's going to see some gusts over 80 miles an hour, and the stronger winds will be on the south side of this system. Could even see some slightly stronger winds if it decides to, instead of go through Pinellas, it decides to go through Bradenton. Then you're looking at those wind gusts in Port Charlotte, probably close to 100 miles an hour.
Aren't up a large portion of the peninsula, basically covering it, right? Those are very strong winds, hurricane force winds. And then on the outer side of that, pretty much the entire peninsula just dealing with tropical storm force winds, and that's extending into the Carolinas as well. And Milton will continue out to the east, but those winds are being felt across the peninsula, whereas other storms like Helene, we had it moving from south to north. This system is slicing right across the state. So that's why we keep emphasizing the winds will be an issue from coast to coast. As we look at the wind shear, this is something we do want to focus on as well, because remember, shear is something that these storms, these tropical systems do not like. It messes up their structure, basically. So as we move into Wednesday, we are encountering more shear here, and that's one of the reasons why we're anticipating the storm to weaken from that Category 5 to Category 3 status. Again, still a major hurricane at that point, but it's some weakening that will take at this point, right? Moving forward into as it makes landfall, again, it's encountering that shear, trying to tear it apart. One of the reasons, however, why we're seeing the shift in the track is due to a front that we have sinking down into our region. So depending on the timing of that front really depends on how fast or slow we start to see this push towards. You see how it kind of jumps and makes that northeasterly turn. And again, that has a lot to do with that front that's sinking in and that area low pressure that's just to the north of that. So again, it's really crucial to get these next 24, 48-hour forecast updates so you can see these little minor changes that we keep pointing out, because little minor changes make all the difference here. We've been telling you with this storm surge, it will have the greatest impact south of where the storm makes landfall. So the storm surge has been updated for Manatee, Sarasota, Pinellas, Hillsborough counties. Now we're looking at the possibility of 10 to 15 foot surge at that highest tide. So high tide times are important, and we're going to keep you updated on that as we move throughout Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday high tide times are pretty early in the morning from what I've seen. And unfortunately, we're looking at Milton to make landfall around that time as well. So that's something that's not helping us out. Hopefully we can slow this storm down and get it closer to lower tide, but that is something we will update you with as we get closer in timing here. As far as the surge moving a little bit further up to the north for Pasco and Hernando counties, we have 5 to 10 foot surge anticipated. Again, the coastal areas feeling those impacts the most. You should have those evacuation orders already. Hopefully you're watching this from a safer place. You still have time to evacuate tomorrow morning. I know the roads have really been congested, and some of you have been writing in saying it's been taking me hours to get where I need to go, but that's okay. As long as you're in a safe location, you're obeying those evacuation orders. That's something we like to hear. Make sure you have the gas. A lot of those gas stations are trying to fill up and have everybody stocked up. Moving north of that, 3 to 5 foot storm surge moving from Citrus County onward, and then the Big Bend, which really could use a break as well. 1 to 3 foot storm surge anticipated. All right, going into these watches and warnings at this point, our entire viewing area is now under that hurricane warning. We had that upgrade come in for the 5 p.m. advisory, so we've been switched over to that, and that just basically means that we're 48 hours away from those hurricane force winds. Remember, it was a hurricane watch, but now it's been upgraded to a hurricane warning, and we are anticipating that landfall come late Wednesday into early Thursday, likely closer to the overnight hours, early Thursday morning. As far as anticipated rainfall, again, north of the center of the storm. So opposite of the storm surge here, we're just talking about rain coming from the system. We do have the higher threat of excessive rainfall for the areas north of where the storm is going to make center, as it's set at the center of its track, onto the shore, and then as it continues its journey out to the east there. So again, this also can change, but it's been pretty consistent where we're looking at Polk County, Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, and northward of that for the most rainfall that we're looking across our area. As far as rainfall totals, we could have anywhere from 5 to 10 inches, but some spots even higher than that, 15 inches of rainfall alone. And again, don't mix this up with the surge. The surge has to do with the winds, the tide, and when the storm is making landfall, how the water is pushing on shore. So we are going to keep you posted on that. 7-day forecast here. Yes, we're going to end with this because there is a little silver lining, if you will. We have much cooler, drier conditions. Look at that, 80-degree temperatures. We haven't had those in quite some time. Lower 80-degree temperatures. That's on the way, and that will help once we do begin the cleanup process. No matter how you look at it, we are going to have the impacts of wind. We are going to have the impacts of surge. The severity of that and the location of that, you have to stay tuned to make sure you're getting these up-to-date forecasts. But again, those evacuation orders, we hope that you got your show on the road, got to your safe spot. If you have not, don't worry, you still have time to get out there, but we highly suggest you wrap everything up early tomorrow morning because there has been a lot of traffic and we want you out there as soon as possible. Evacuation orders set for all of our coastal areas, A, B, C in some spots. Make sure you check with your county so you can get that information as well. And of course, if you ever have any questions, we're here to help you. And we thank you for joining us on air and online. Talking about the very small but mighty Milton, a Category 5 storm. And when I say small diameter-wise, but this is a pretty healthy storm right now. The latest stats here, the wind speed 180 miles per hour, and the pressure did drop. The pressure is trying to
see these demonstrations taking place on a Saturday night, and we'll see tens of thousands of people coming out in display. Now, a few weeks ago, when we did see those 6 Israeli hostages, including the Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Tolan, their bodies brought back to Israel, we saw one of the largest demonstrations in the country's history. That's when we saw an estimated 500,000 people take to the streets. And that was a key turning point for many people. However, as the war does continue, despite this turning point and despite the mass protest that we saw for some sort of a deal to come through, it doesn't seem like this is necessarily the majority of Israel. And we look at different polls and different numbers, there is still this not total unison on how Israel should continue with the war. And so truly
at landfall, as we get you into about midnight on Thursday, hurricane hunters making their first passing. The pressure 903. Cam and I are still debating on whether or not it's intensifying or if it's maybe peaked and it's starting to come around. At any rate, Milton's lowest pressure, 897 millibars. That is now 5th on the list. Wilma. And then Gilbert, 882 and 885, 2005, and the 1980s there. All right, so we got this trough of low pressure. Upper level winds get quite strong across the northern Gulf of Mexico. And the key question right now, as we try to fine tune the track and path, is when does this make the turn to the right? And how far north does it rise? So there's the storm right in line with what we're thinking. There's been a slight shift in some of the models tonight, just a little bit more towards the south. And I would love to see this trend continue such that we can get the landfall south of the Tampa Bay area. Now, the global models, the Euro and the GFS, go right over the Tampa Bay itself. It's the tropical models that tonight are edging just a little bit more to the south, maybe by about 10 miles. That could make a big difference, though, in storm surge for locations north and south of the center coming ashore. All right, hurricane warnings now through much of central Florida. Hurricane watches there on the eastern side. So should I evacuate? On the west coast, it's mandatory, yes. Through the interior, if you live in a mobile home, just check with your manufacturer on the tie downs and what you should be doing. And then up here, we're going to have to watch the backside of our storm system as there could be some strong coastal beach erosion. So mandatory here, voluntary in the yellow, and in between, we call that the zone basis there. You got to check for your orders. So far, so good there. Cam, we continue to evaluate this. with each passing model run.
That's right. We should be getting new data at 11 o'clock. But for now, let's go county by county based on what we know as of so far. The worst of the weather here for folks in Marion County will be Wednesday night into Thursday. We're expecting winds sustained at 50 to 65 miles per hour, gusts well over 75 miles. And we're looking at an additional 6 to 8 inches of rainfall for you folks here in Marion County. That includes Ocala, Citra, and Salt Springs. You're currently under a hurricane warning. For Lake County, expect the worst of your weather about late Wednesday night into early Thursday. So think about 9 p to 9 a.m. Thursday. Winds sustained at 60 to 70 miles per hour, gusts well over 80 at times. Rainfall, an additional 4 to 8 inches of rainfall for you folks there in Lake County. For friends and family out in Rutland, Bushnell, and the Villages, here in Sumter County, expect an additional half a foot of rain before this is all said and done. Wind gusts well over 85 miles per hour. Sustained winds 65 to 75 with the worst of weather again late Wednesday to Thursday. Let's head out to the coast now. Brevard County, you're currently under a storm surge watch for coastline areas, expecting a 2 to 4 foot storm surge there. Additional 4 to 6 inches of rain expected. Cat 1 strength wind gusts well over 75 miles per hour with sustained winds between 55 to 65. And heading up north, the I-95 corridor to Volusia County, expecting additional half a foot of rainfall between now and when Milton arrives. Wind gusts well over 75 miles per hour in Volusia County and 55 to 65 mile per hour sustained winds in areas like DeLand and New Smyrna Beach. And then let's wrap things up with Flagler County. We're expecting the worst of weather for you folks late Wednesday into Thursday. Wind gusts well over 75 miles per hour with an additional half a foot of rainfall. Conditions will deteriorate very quickly Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And then finally, Milton moves out by midday Thursday. More coverage after the break.
Here, I mean, there's people who live here, but it's pretty sparsely populated. Sparsely populated here. That's not the case for a lot of the west coast of Florida. People mentioned the rocket alerts. Let me just do a quick check of that. Again, I want to just update people. There are some rocket alerts going off right now in, are these the new ones? This is in, again, northern Israel near the border. I don't have a camera right there. That's where they're going off. I will check a little later to see if we have any updates about it. It is not uncommon these days to have rocket alerts and rockets fired into Israel by Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is, I assume, what's going on. But I will do a check on that in a little bit. Okay. Anyways, to talk about this for a second. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, you know, up here, if a hurricane makes landfall up here, it's bad, but a lot of this is not very populated here. I mean, you know, right on the coast. But if you look down here, look what happens when you get down here. I mean, look at this. Look at how densely populated it is right on the coast, right? In here, Tampa Bay, then go south. You got Bradenton Beach, Longboat Key. You have these barrier islands here, but I mean, look at down here, Siesta Key, South Sarasota. There's so many people who live like right on the water. You know, north and south of there. I mean, you know, so it's not like up here where you have this national forest and wildlife area and stuff. But that's where it looks to be heading. Soldier of Fortune said there's a 200-mile traffic jam. I'll have to look into that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a lot of people are evacuating. Hurricanes.gov, I believe, is the National Hurricane Center page. Is it not? Hurricanes.gov. Yeah, hurricanes.gov. I haven't even checked the traffic. I don't know what it's normally like there. I'm sure it's, I mean, I see red here in places, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's really bad. I haven't really researched the traffic tonight. So, I mean, you see a bunch of red here, which suggests to me traffic jams. But again, I'm not familiar with the normal traffic patterns in the area. Certainly, there's a lot of red and yellow here on the way on going north. You know, north of Tampa. Even at 10 at night.
Behind me, but now it's on the side of the street, just like all of this debris that was put out here after Hurricane Helene hit just 10 days ago. Now this street is lined with trash that hasn't been picked up and probably won't be picked up before Hurricane Milton hits in just a few days. The only good news that I have spoken with residents, and most of them say that they do plan on evacuating before the next hurricane hits. Reporting in El Jobin, I'm Jaron May.
Certainly a lot of people seem to be making different plans after what we just saw with Helene, and how even without that direct impact, still a lot of serious impact.
Yeah, and even if you don't live along the coast, you're probably thinking, what can I do to prepare? I bumped into a guy I know today who owns a pool supply store. And he said, I've had so many people say, do I have to drain my pool? And he said, do not drain your pool because it could pop out of the ground without the weight of the water.
Okay.
So just about everybody has a pool in Southwest Florida. So if you're thinking, what do you need to do to prepare your pool? You don't need to drain it. Maybe you can take a little bit of water out, but do not empty your pool, and turn off the circuit for your pool equipment right before the storm hits. Because if there's a power surge, after we lose power, that sort of thing, you don't want to fry your equipment. So those are the two biggest things he said. Don't drain your pool and turn off the power to your pool pump right before the storm.
Yeah, some of those possibilities, you don't even think of all the different scenarios that could happen. Your pool popping out is not one that I knew was possible, but glad that you ran into him today.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Nothing about it. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Drewski. Thank you also, McLean. McLean says, people don't realize a majority of oil gas imports come through Tampa Bay. We might have some major shortages if Tampa Bay is significantly damaged. I haven't even heard that. Thank you, McLean33. That's something else I'll have to look into. Thank you, Midas, our new member, and Tiffany Rose, Mark Jennings, who says Wilma had a pressure of 882 in October 05. Thank you, Cheryl Martin, our new member. Aloha Tarantula, thank you from London. Spirit of Mourning, thanks for the gift memberships. Martin Gingrich, who says, hopefully everybody heeds the evacuation warnings and people help get the elderly. Lord, please have mercy, please. Amen. Thank you, Kim Rivard and Ann Breedenstein as well. Let's look at this. Again, there's a new National Hurricane Center update coming up at 11 p.m., which is in an hour. But I want to show you this video they did tonight. Just a little summary of a bunch of different aspects of this.
Now is a stronger storm than anybody was saying even 24 hours ago. We start talking about 180 mile an hour winds in the whole history of the state of Florida. You're talking about Labor Day hurricane was stronger than that. I don't think even Hurricane Andrew got to that point when it made landfall. Now it is expected to weaken, but we can't assume that that's going to happen.
A look at Tampa, Florida, where hurricane and storm surge warnings are in effect. A massive evacuation operation is underway. Hurricane Helene's destruction still fresh in Floridians' minds. Category 5 Hurricane Milton has exploded in strength. It's making a run up the leaderboard of the strongest hurricanes in recorded history. A worst-case scenario for the Florida Gulf Coast. You're watching special coverage of Hurricane Milton on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm meteorologist Jane Minar. Milton, an incredible storm that rapidly intensified in just 24 hours from a Category 1 to a Category 5. 180-mile-per-hour winds as of the 8 o'clock advisory coming in from the National Hurricane Center. Pushes off to the east at 10 miles an hour. Now, it is undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle. What does that mean? Well, that 5-mile wide eye that we were tracking over the last couple of hours, it's starting to grow in size. Orlando, Tampa, we've got a live look at you here. Let's get you up to the latest here for the Tampa Bay area. What we're most concerned with, of course, storm surge, when it looks to be up to 15 feet from this particular storm. All is quiet now. Hopefully those final preparations are being made and that evacuation orders are being listened to. Lakewood Ranch, Florida, similar scene there. This is truly the calm before the storm. Enhanced satellite shows you the cloud tops of this particular storm of Hurricane Milton. And so when we look at the cloud tops, we're not looking through to the surface. And so we are watching, though, a very symmetrical storm. And you can see how that eye has closed in a bit, but you can see the overall structure, especially getting into the upper levels, is growing in size. And so that is one thing that we are going to be looking at over the next, I think, 12 to 24 hours is, okay, where was that peak intensity? Have we gotten there with Category 5, 180-mile-per-hour winds as of this last advisory? Now that that eye wall replacement cycle is happening, once it starts to reorganize a touch, that eye gets bigger, still sitting into that pristine environment, do we see strengthening continue? And I think that's going to be the question. And truly, models have had a difficult time with forecasting the intensity of this storm. I mean, who would have imagined 24 hours ago that we would be talking the monster that Milton is? This is what it looked like through its peak intensity going into the afternoon, just before we lost that visible satellite imagery. Once the sun set. Now, the thing is that this storm pushing off to the east at 10 miles an hour, it is going to be making a brush with the Yucatan. And unfortunately, the dirty side to this storm is brushing many of these communities that are rural and don't have much. And so this is the worst case scenario for the Yucatan, to have a storm of this magnitude so close, pushing its way on through the way. Now, this is the Hurricane Hunter information. So as of the last advisory last hour, we were down under 900, 897 millibars. But you can see with that eye wall replacement cycle, how we have seen some gradual weakening with that storm. The pressure has come up, and the overall diameter of that eye has gotten bigger. They were measuring two concentric eyes at the same time. Eventually, that eye wall replacement cycle means that we're going to see it grow. And then from there, we are going to watch as this storm starts to take over. Now, the storm growing in size is what we're most concerned with, because that means that those impacts, especially on approach to Florida, are going to be of a much greater scope and area, being felt by many more millions. So no big changes through the afternoon. I imagine at the next advisory, as we get into the overnight hours, that we'll see that eye wall replacement cycle reflected. But the wind history, I was just talking about this 24 hours ago. Who would have imagined we would have gone from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5? I mean, we are in rare company when we talk about Milton and its strength. Florida's Gulf Coast preparing for Milton's impact, but 2 years after Hurricane Ian's catastrophic hit, Fort Myers residents are still picking up the pieces. Now, mandatory evacuation orders are in place for zones A and B. Fox Weather correspondent Robert Ray was in Fort Myers Beach earlier with more on the situation there.
No matter whether or not we're 2 years removed, you can see behind me as the sun is going down, some of the destruction that still exists, and yet there is hope as they are rebuilding, but they're nowhere near the full rebuilding process here on Fort Myers Beach. And that's what scares everyone so much about this system coming in that could bring up to 10 feet of storm surge, and that catastrophic wind field. I mean, just in the past 2 months, Tropical Storm Debbie, we look at this video that didn't even make a direct hit here, sent in 2 to 4 feet of storm surge, inundating businesses, homes, the beach, and roadways. And then, 10 days ago, Hurricane Helene that brushed this area as well, and then made landfall up in the Big Bend and the Nature Coast, also brought in storm surge and some gusty winds. And so they can't catch a break here by any means in Southwest Florida. Having said all of that, people were out today before the mandatory evacuation that started at 3 p.m. They were filling up sandbags. They were making sure that all of the windows and the doorways were cordoned off and wood was put, or even pieces of metal on businesses and homes. In the meantime, hurricane warnings are up from Naples all the way north of Tampa, and the surge could be historic as this Category 5 storm Milton is churning out in the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, tonight, it could be designated as the biggest hurricane ever to go over the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we think that it's going to decrease as it makes landfall, but that doesn't make any difference on the impacts, as it will likely get wider, unfortunately. I've been talking to people all day on the ground here in Fort Myers Beach about their fears and what their plan is. Listen.
After Ian, I'm scared. I'm very afraid.
Do you think that people are going to evacuate and heed the orders of that?
Yes, I do. After Ian, they are. As soon as I get my shutters up and my sandbags in, I'm probably out of here myself because I can't live through that again. It's going to be bad enough coming back to the devastation.
It's really tough to see the heartbreak in all the people, and we're hoping this one passes us by.
So we've had the house here on Ohio Avenue for 20 years. We love this place. And we just finished rebuilding it about 9 months ago after Ian. And hopefully this one the story isn't quite told on the path. So preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Yeah, meanwhile, thousands of people have evacuated the shorelines, and they are on I-75 heading north out of Florida, hopefully to safe ground and where they'll find a hotel, I hope. The Atlanta metro, many of those suburbs in Atlanta, opening up temporary shelters for people and guiding them if they need somewhere to stay. 5,000 National Guard members are on the ground here by order of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and they are waiting to help out in the aftermath. Up in Tropicana Field, which is in Tampa, where the Major League Baseball Rays play, they put out cots, and utility workers are up there sleeping, as well as first responders. There will likely be mass power outages and catastrophic damage as Milton comes in. In the meantime, if you're listening to this, if you're thinking about retreat or leaving this area and you have the means to do it, and you live too close to where surge might come in, and you don't have a safe place, maybe your structure is not safe enough for the wind field, please get in your car and go. This is nothing to mess with. This could be potentially one of the most historic hurricanes to ever hit the United States of America.
All right, take a look at this. This is Sarasota, Florida on the I-75, and traffic has been at a standstill here. When you look at this camera, this gives me certainly a lot of hope and a lot of pride knowing that people are heeding these evacuations. They're getting out, they're getting to safety, they're getting away from the coast. Now, remember, with this storm, impacts from Milton will be felt inland, but when you talk about the life-threatening danger of storm surge, you need to get away from the shoreline. Evacuation zones in place, Zone A, Zone B, in some cases up and around Pinellas County, Tampa Bay area, even up to Zone C are under those mandatory evacuation orders, and you need to heed them through tonight, through tomorrow, getting to those shelters, hotel rooms. Good advice, call ahead. If you are looking to seek shelter in a hotel, time might be running out. A lot of these hotels are filling up quickly, and I don't want you to think that that's your last option. There are shelters open for a reason, and even if you have to, hop in your car and go all the way up through neighboring Georgia. I know that Georgia Emergency Management Agency, they're opening up their doors. The Motor Speedway is open. Albany, I know some of these areas took a hard hit from Helene, but they're saying, please come, because this is life-threatening and you don't want to be anywhere near it. Storm surge warnings are up for the West Coast. Storm surge watches up for Northeast Florida, up into Georgia and the Carolinas. Now that's going to be happening as this storm starts to cut across. We're going to be watching as those winds begin to whip their way onshore, pushing that inland for those areas. So the St. Johns River in and around Jacksonville will start to see some of that water rise as we go through the day Wednesday on even into Thursday as well. But those storm surge warnings on the west coast of Florida, these numbers are staggering. And we saw big numbers through the Big Bend with Helene, right? Topping over 10 feet in some areas. But when we look at up to 15 feet in Tampa Bay, I mean, this is something that they have never seen before in the Tampa Bay area. There is truly no storm of reference of what could be happening as those waters from the Gulf of Mexico push into the Tampa Bay, which, by the way, very vulnerable to surge, even down into Fort Myers up to 10 feet. But this is where we have that gradual slope getting down into the Gulf. And with a storm of this size and magnitude pushing into the coastline, I mean, it is going to be incredibly life-threatening. So listen to those warnings. You can see people are doing that on the I-75 right now. Even if it means a couple hours of traffic, it is worth your life. Storm surge warnings span all along Florida's Gulf Coast. It is just incredible to watch the magnitude of this. We have all eyes on Florida with this dangerous storm. Folks evacuating. We're breaking down the storm's hazards and timing next.
Close from noon on October 8th, which is tomorrow, until Thursday the 10th.
All right, we continue to track Milton, waiting for that new advisory. We'll update the cone. I'll walk you through some scenarios of how this could be a worst case or a better case for our region, and also another little explanation of storm surge. Still a ton of questions, where you're located. We'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. evacuation zone if you feel comfortable and want to deal with traffic, but why clog the roads for more people?
And Lee County is split into two halves, basically. The coastal areas and then the inland areas. And since you have the Caloosahatchee running all across the northern portion of the county, which goes way inland and into Hendry County, they issued it for the whole county, the coastal and the inland areas, even though, like, I live in Lehigh Acres. I'm not anywhere near the Caloosahatchee, but I'm still technically under that storm surge warning, even though I'm not by the river.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you live right off Palm Beach Boulevard, it's a whole different story.
Right.
Right. So if you can see water from your home, you're most likely in a flood zone and an evacuation zone. Remember, those two things are kind of different, but evacuation zones will closely monitor those flood zones. So specifically when it gets to street level, I think the word street level might be a little bit better to comprehend than ground level, because everyone's kind of saying, hey, my elevation is this. My mean sea level elevation is this, and we all get our elevation certificates when you get the house to see if you need flood insurance or not. So it's street level. The forecast of 6 to 10 feet for areas in coastal Lee and Charlotte County is going to be above street level. So that comes from walking out to your road that you drive on, that street level. As far as, and I have to think about, in my neighborhood specifically, I know there's certain houses that are much higher than others that were built more recently. The 1960s homes are much lower. They're more at street level. The newer homes are going to be a little bit higher. The storm surge forecast is inclusive of your elevation, not specific home to home. So it's saying, okay, my neighborhood, this is the elevation. Lehigh, your elevation is higher. Gateway, your elevation is higher. Babcock Ranch is significantly higher. If you have a brand new neighborhood where everything was kind of built up, it's significantly higher, street level. So it's street level, not house dependent. But if you're under evacuation order, that's what you have to head on inland, east of 75, out an evacuation zone. Find a friend that is not in A or B. It's not going to be hard. It could be a 5-mile difference to head inland. Here's the cone. At 11, less than an hour from now. I know it's confusing. I know all those numbers can be confusing. But just if you type your address into those websites, it tells you what zone you're in, and that can make your decision a lot easier. Okay, so here's the cone. I kind of want to walk you through different scenarios of how this could change for us. We are still clipped here in the cone, but keep in mind that there's equal chances of it making landfall here. Best bet is kind of in the center, but you can't really hang your hat on that completely, especially this far out. We're 48 hours out. It could change a little bit. If it does track to the north, this is the best case for us. Farther north, the better. But keep in mind, farther north does not diminish our impacts. It does not diminish our storm surge. It would diminish the wind threat. It would diminish maybe a little bit of rain, but our storm surge would be on the low end of the scale. It doesn't make it go away. Instead of 10 feet, maybe on the low end, 6 feet. So we're still expecting storm surge no matter where this makes landfall. As far as making kind of in the middle, headed to Tampa, that forecast is going to pan out for a lot of regions. Damaging winds, power outages are going to be likely. The farther south that storm pushes, the more winds we're going to have, the higher the winds are going to be, the heavier rain is going to move on through, flooding potential. And where this could come tricky is the heaviest band of rain is to the north of Milton right now. If that tracks in our region, I know it happened in DeSoto County for Ian, that heavy rain will add that flooding potential there. So this is what we don't want. The farther north, the better. I'm not wishing it up to Tampa. I'm not wishing it to Sarasota. It's just if it can make landfall north of, even farther north, we need those winds to be where it's not very populated, and there is a lower density population farther into that Big Bend region, but that would also increase the storm surge more for Tampa Bay. This is a no-win situation. There's no way that we win at, oh, this is the best scenario. No, it's kind of just a lose-lose. We're just seeing who's going to get the worst impacts out of this. What we can hope for, here's the best case scenario, is this storm just collapses, but that's not going to happen. Wednesday into Thursday, this is landfall time. You can see how it really starts to fall off quickly, Thursday and Friday. Now it's just kind of falling apart. But Wednesday into Thursday, we see that diminish in wind speeds before landfall. It's not going to be at peak intensity before landfall. Remember Hurricane Michael that hit the Panhandle? That was reaching peak intensity at landfall. The last thing you want is a storm gaining momentum at landfall. This storm should be losing momentum at landfall. That's in our favor, but it still leaves us with a powerful storm. It still leaves us with a category 3. We're expecting dry air to come in. We're expecting a little wind shear, but it's not enough to weaken the storm enough to make it not a big deal. It's just not there. So we still have to kind of watch this, unfortunately, just so closely. And I meant to update this and I forgot again. 6 to 10 feet of surge Wednesday into Wednesday night, and that could linger into Thursday morning. So we're going to adjust our timetable as we go through in time here. Winds, again, gust of wind. We are not, as for now, as of today, the wind potential is not going to be the max if we're not getting landfall. If we don't get landfall, we're talking about wind gust every now and then, hurricane force. The sustained winds of over 100 miles per hour, that's going to be concentrated to where that storm makes landfall. If we see any adjustments going away from Tampa, close to our region, don't worry, we're going to be here for the next how many hours until the storm passes to alert you of those changes. So we're not going anywhere. If you do a little cleanup, want to come back in, we'll be here to kind of walk you through each update that we get. Isolated tornadoes, that's going to be a threat for all of Southwest Florida. But when we talk about not dealing with the water impact farther inland, that's something you want to watch out for as we head into Wednesday night and Wednesday afternoon. And the rain, it's been raining. It's been raining for the past couple of days. We're going to get more rain. Potentially what we should not have is what we had with Helene, is kind of those trailing bands for the weekend after. I don't think we're going to have that. We're going to have this move off into the Atlantic pretty quickly. All right, we'll be right back with more coverage after this.
In the blink of an eye, life's most precious moments unfold. At Eye Centers of Florida, we understand that every glance, every gaze holds a memory. That's why we're dedicated to providing extraordinary eye care for everyday living, because you deserve to live life's most precious moments in full clarity. Eye Centers of Florida, clear vision for a beautiful life.
As Milton approaches Southwest Florida,
take a deep breath and make appropriate decisions.
NBC2 and ABC7 are working together to keep you ahead of the storm.
We'll be here throughout the storm to walk you through all these details and analysis.
The most experienced storm team with the power of live radar tracking every threat.
But I really want you to be locked in, dialed into the forecast as we continue to track the system.
This hurricane season, get more from the weather experts you count on.
Commitment isn't just a word we throw around. It's baked into everything we do.
If you've been hurt in a car accident, our commitment gets real fast. We interview witnesses and gather evidence.
We let the other side know that you're not alone and that your words have power.
You were injured by no fault of your own, but together we can hit back with the full force of the law.
Real commitment starts when you walk through our door. Farah and Farah.
Find your new ride at Sam Galloway Ford in Fort Myers. Right now, save thousands on a new F-150. We have a huge selection, including 2023 and 2024 models, all trims. When you shop with us, you'll get the Galloway Guarantee. Transparent pricing, honest communications, and excellent service. We've served Southwest Floridians since 1927. Now let us serve you. Visit us in Fort Myers or shop now at samgallowayford.com.
Where do you go when you need a trusted flooring expert or just a special touch here and there? And the answer is Abbey Carpet and Floor. Visit our downtown showroom or North Naples location and begin enjoying the Southwest Florida lifestyle in your beautiful home. Our experienced flooring professionals are ready to help, and they'll be with you from start to finish. At Abbey, our customers always come first.
Take a live look at the Matlacha Bridge. This is the only way on and off that tiny little island. It's very calm right now. No crazy traffic. They have been ordered to evacuate. This is definitely in Zone A, and they're supposed to evacuate by tomorrow. But as of now, things are calm. We do have a reporter there who has seen some evacuations, but nothing en masse at this point.
Right. Evan Dean is out there for us in St. James City. Evan, how's it going out there?
Megan and Peter, good evening. It's doing okay out here. It's really quiet weather-wise. No rain, no wind, and it's also really quiet in the neighborhoods around here. A lot of people that I spoke with say they plan to evacuate, if they haven't already, by tomorrow. Of course, as Peter said, the county has issued a mandatory evacuation order for the barrier islands and want people off the islands by tomorrow night. I spoke with a few people who said they do plan to ride it out, but for the most part, people say they're going to be getting off the islands here. Now, we did speak with the owner of a little small hotel and resort in St. James City. It's very St. James City. That's the vibe. It's a really neat place. Unfortunately, it's been blow after blow for him. He got water in the rooms after Helene and had to spend a lot of time, a lot of money cleaning that up. Just as soon as he got a handle on that, Milton shows up in the forecast. And now all over Pine Island and Matlacha, it's wooden boards, sandbags, and an anxiety that's starting to feel far too familiar here. Bring from Helene to preparing for Milton.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the feeling?
Oh, I don't know what to think. I don't know how many more times I can do this, to be honest with you.
Kind of at a loss for words.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can, and then, I can't help Mother Nature, so.
Yeah, another concern is that there is still some water in yards and on the streets when we drove back through this area. Nothing major, nothing concerning at the moment, but we know what's coming our way, and this area is just so saturated and very wet out here. One positive, if we can find one, is that a lot of the debris that people took out of their homes after Helene has been picked up. We have seen some debris out and about still, but as much as we can get off the roads before Milton moves through, the better. We're going to send it back to break, and we'll be right back after this.
Find your new ride at Sam Galloway Ford in Fort Myers. Right now, save thousands on a new F-150. We have a huge selection, including 2023 and 2024 models, all trims. When you shop with us, you'll get the Galloway guarantee, transparent pricing, honest communications, and excellent service. We've served Southwest Floridians since 1927. Now let us serve you. Visit us in Fort Myers or shop now at samgallowayford.com.
As the holidays approach, make every room in your home guest ready with City Mattress. For a limited time, save 30% on all bedroom furniture, from upholstered beds and headboards to dressers, nightstands, and armoires. From our family to yours, relax and reconnect in a sanctuary of warmth and style. You deserve the best. Find it at City Mattress.
At Advanced Orthopedic Center, we take pride in our friendly service and board-certified specialists. We know what it means to want to move and groove again. That's why we offer the most innovative ways to treat joint pain and get you back on your feet again. Never let painful joints keep you from exploring and having a good time. Discover new heights, new views, or just spend some time with the family. Advanced Orthopedic Center for all your joint pain needs. Check us out today, located in Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda.
Dude, you seen this new video? It's good.
It's funny.
No, that's not the funny part.
Being forced to watch a 10-minute video is hard. Hiring Morgan & Morgan for your injury is easy.
Oh, it's the wrong video.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, is easy.
As Milton approaches Southwest Florida,
Take a deep breath and make appropriate decisions.
NBC2 and ABC7 are working together to keep you ahead of the storm.
We'll be here throughout the storm to walk you through all these details and analysis.
The most experienced storm team with the power of live radar tracking every threat.
But I really want you to be locked in, dialed into the forecast as we continue to track the system.
This hurricane season, get more from the weather experts you count on.
NBC2 and ABC7 are joining forces to track Hurricane Milton for you. We'll be here until the storm passes. I'm Megan Miller alongside Peter Bush. And ABC 7 Chief Meteorologist John Patrick. We're waiting for that 11 o'clock advisory. I know we're really, a lot of us, anxious to see as the night goes on, as tomorrow goes on, where things kind of solidify.
And this is going to be an update where we're going to get a new forecast. So if I had to wage my bets right now, I say it's going to be really, really close to 11 o'clock. Sometimes when there's not much change in the data that they're getting in from hurricane hunters or whatnot, and the forecast isn't going to change much, sometimes they'll issue those advisories 15, even 30 minutes in advance. But we got some new information, of course, with the pressure going down and all that stuff. So I think it'll be a little closer to 11 o'clock when we get that advisory. But we'll be tracking it for you here at ABC 7 and NBC 2. Right now, the latest advisory is from 8 p.m., and that has the storm at 180 miles per hour. So that's a strong Category 5 storm, and it's moving east at 10 miles per hour. Again, we should be getting a new advisory within the half hour here, and we will certainly bring it to you as soon as it comes in. We're also going to get a new cone coming up here at 11 o'clock. The forecast cone, this one was from 5 o'clock, but you can see that the Category 5 is going to hang around until late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. And this is going to be an area right in here. If you've been watching, we've been showing you a couple of times now. This area right in here is kind of a hot spot for development because you've got warm water and you've got very low wind shear. As it moves into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, the wind shear, the winds in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere are a bit stronger. So that keeps the vertical development, the vertical winds, which you need for a strong hurricane, it kind of keeps them from being as strong as they could be. And that will tend to weaken the storm. Although, if you look, it's a Category 3. And on some of the modeling that we're looking at, that Category 3, that'll be a high-end Cat 3. So we're looking at a very powerful storm, and a storm that has really moved in a very strange direction. If you were here in October of 2005, we had Hurricane Wilma, and that one came up from the Caribbean and curved and made a landfall in Collier County that year. There have only been 2 other storms when we go back in recorded history that we find that have formed near the Bay of Campeche and have tracked towards the Florida coastline. And they were both unnamed storms back from the 1800s. They didn't start naming storms until 1950, so this is way before that. But there were 2 storms that formed in the Bay of Campeche, and you can see how they tracked compared to the forecast cone for Hurricane Milton. And you can see that one of those storms, the one from 1859, had made a landfall in Tampa Bay, and then the other one from 1888 made a landfall a little bit farther north up by Cedar Key. So those are the only 2 storms that we have to look at back in the past. So we don't really have good analog information, if you will, to forecast where this one is going to go. But you saw the forecast cone there as well, and it could still make a landfall anywhere from southwest Florida all the way up to the Big Bend area. We have one more good preparation day out ahead of all that, and that is tomorrow. As we go through the night, we're going to still see some more rain bands making their way through the area. Some areas of rain, not from Milton, but from another little system that has kind of gelled together out ahead of that. Not a very strong system, but it is spreading rain our way. And you can see Marco Island drying out from one of those areas of rain over to Everglades City. It's kind of a more steady rain all the way up State Road 29. It does dry out around Naples a little bit, Naples Park and Bonita Springs. Golden Gate City's got some light rain, and out towards Golden Gate Estates, you can see that rain is pretty steady all the way into Ave Maria and into Immokalee as well. As we get into Lee County, it's just very little spotty sprinkles across portions of State Road 82 and Lehigh Acres, Colonial Boulevard, and MLK, State Road 82 in Fort Myers, and right along US 41 and I-75, a little bit of a steady, very, very light rain. Things are fairly dry in Charlotte County, Port Charlotte into Punta Gorda. A couple sprinkles around Babcock Ranch, but the Cape Hayes Peninsula is dry right now all the way up into Englewood and Northport. We've got Arcadia and DeSoto County dry. LaBelle and Clewiston are dry right now. This area of rain that's down to your south is going to continue to push out of Immokalee and into south central Hendry County. There's a couple of spotty areas of rain out here in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what's going to be coming in after 11 o'clock tonight after we get this initial kind of a steadier area of rain out of here. Here's where it is right now. This is our future radar. We're going to go 2 hours in the future. First, we're going to go over the next 60 minutes to push that area of steadier rain just about out of Collier County, east of State Road 29. And then as we get into hour 2, we're going to go into 1230, and you can see some of that spotty rain that I showed you in the Gulf of Mexico makes its way in. Now, as we get into Wednesday night and Thursday, we're going to continue to track Hurricane Milton in the Gulf of Mexico. This is our in-house model here at NBC2 and ABC7 with a forecast point off to our north up by Tampa Bay. We are going to see a southwesterly wind, which will be gusty. And that southwesterly wind is what's going to cause our storm surge, which for most of the area will happen Wednesday night heading into Thursday. Some of these south-facing beaches around Everglades City and Chokoloskee, Marco Island, the south side of Sanibel, south side of the Cape Hayes Peninsula towards Matlacha and those areas, you'll see a south wind, and that may cause a bit of storm surge first before the wind is able to turn off to the southwest. Wanted to show you what we're thinking here as far as wind gusts. This is the European forecast model, and we're going to show you this, and then we're going to show you our in-house forecast model. Look out here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is where the hurricane's going to be, and 123 miles per hour offshore to the west of Sarasota, near the center of Hurricane Milton. You get away from it, it's tropical storm force winds and darn near hurricane force winds as you get up towards Venice and Englewood and the Lee Island coast, I think, could get up 65 to even 70 miles per hour. We're still going to see 50 to 60 mile an hour winds for a good chunk of the inland areas too. And keep in mind, these will be gusts. These are not going to be constant winds. So that's what the European model is suggesting. As we watch Milton on our in-house forecast model, some of the strongest winds are in this really dark, deep red, and you'll see a couple of areas of white pop up here. And our forecast model, remember the European, I showed you 120 mile an hour or 123 mile an hour wind gust. Our model here is in line with that, giving you a range of about 100 to 150 in that little white spot right there. And then, of course, as the storm makes landfall, those winds will weaken and kind of spread out. So let's drill down in and show you what we're thinking here for Southwest Florida. Again, the strongest of the wind.
Patience and understanding that we're all going through this together.
For those who do evacuate, the sheriff is promising to protect homes and businesses from looters.
Do all that we can to make sure that your homes, your properties are protected with increased enforcement, surveillance within those areas.
We're inside the Emergency Operations Center in Seminole County, and it is absolutely packed. It's got actually more personnel than we had about a week and a half ago with Hurricane Helene. In fact, this table right here was empty because they weren't dealing with some shelter planning and other things that were going on for Helene that we are dealing with Milton. Part of the job was getting shelter trailers prepped with equipment to be placed at schools Wednesday that will handle general population evacuees, those with special medical needs, and those with pets.
These specific schools have been hardened. So not all schools are used, specific schools, and we've hardened those schools with shutter systems, hardened doors, hardened windows. So these are much more protected than even other schools.
The county is also preparing for the storm's aftermath with a debris field near Black Hammock Trailhead that should be able to handle the estimated 3 to 10 million cubic yards of debris, enough to fill 33 spaceship Earths at Disney's Epcot. And we are live once again outside of the Lowe's in Sanford, where, of course, the doors are closed now. Here and at other hardware stores, home improvement centers, that'll all be extremely busy tomorrow selling materials like this to help people get prepared for Milton. Of course, more information in Seminole County on shelter locations, hours, that sort of thing coming in the morning. Live in Seminole County, Greg Fox, West 2 News.
Greg, thank you. Lake County residents spent today getting ready for Milton to make landfall.
Western's Haley Crumble Home live for us in Tavares at what will become one of the county's shelters. Haley.
Yes, Stuart, we're here at Tavares High School. It's obviously empty right now, but come noon tomorrow, this is going to become one of the county's 15 shelters. Now, students here in the district, they don't have school for the rest of the week, and people we talk to are getting prepared while they still can. In Lake County, Monday was spent getting ready for Milton.
I'm out here, just getting some sandbags.
We're trying to get the water, obviously food for the kids.
Just bring in lawn furniture in.
A lot of the folks we talked to didn't have much of an issue with Helene. They think Milton might be a different story.
We just got a little wind, just a little debris off the trees and stuff. That's about it. So hopefully this is more like that, but I don't think it is.
They're saying it's coming up I-4. I'm kind of concerned about that since we're close to I-4.
So for people like Frances Ortiz, who has a family member that needs power because of health issues, she's ready to move to one of the county's 15 shelters if her home loses power.
Mainly for my family, definitely.
And while a shelter is her backup plan, an RV is his.
Worried about power outages.
just want to be prepared. This is going to be the second home if we lose power at our main home.
He felt lucky he was looking for diesel. People we talked to looking for regular were having a hard time finding it.
How many gas stations have you been to today?
2 or 3.
And have any luck at any of them?
No, not.
I have tried 5 different gas stations. It's like a nightmare.
When we caught up with Michaela Hope Saunders, she was on empty. No car fuel, but
it's like nightmare fuel.
She wants to be gassed up and ready to go if she needs to be. She lives in a mobile home park on a lake.
So if the water rises, it's kind of scary for me. So I do want to be able to get an escape. And if I lose power, I want to be able to charge stuff. I don't have like a generator or extra battery.
Some people told us they'll try again for gas, and they'll keep preparing and praying.
We're praying now, get out of here. Don't come our way, that's for certain.
Now, if you are planning to head to a shelter here in Lake County, they do have shelters that can take in pets and can accommodate people with special needs. We have more information on those shelters on WESH.com. Live in Lake County, Haley Crumbleholm, WESH 2 News.
All right, Haley, thank you. WESH 2 committed to bringing you the latest updates on Hurricane Milton before, during, and after the storm. The 11 p.m. advisory just came in. Our coverage will continue right after this.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
Let's go a little north and towards our coastline to Volusia County, where Hurricane Milton could dump anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain.
WESH 2's Gail Pascal Brown is live in Edgewater tonight to bring us up to speed on sandbags, evacuations, and shelters. Gail.
That's right. All you need to know, Summer, that's for sure. There are 7 shelters which will open here in Volusia County, evacuation shelters, 2 of which will be special needs shelters. Also, an evacuation order has already been announced for Volusia County, and those are basically folks who are living in low-lying areas, areas which are prone to flooding, as well as folks living east of the Intracoastal Waterway. So those RV parks and campsites, those areas need to be evacuated. And of course, there are sites open, just like right here at Mango Tree Park, where folks can get sandbags, plenty of them within Volusia County. There are several locations you can get sandbags in Volusia County. In Edgewater, 2 of them are 24-hour accessible. This is Mango Tree Lake. Here you show your ID and you can get up to 15 bags of sand. For the Phillips, it's not their first rodeo. Every year they prepare, this time to prevent flooding to their Florida Shores home.
15, we put them in front of our door and our garage door, backyard. It's up for grabs at this point.
What do you think about this particular storm?
I'm used to it. We've been doing this for 20 years, but it gets tiresome after a while for sure.
There's been a lot of development in the area, so there's been a lot of increase in flooding in our neighborhood. So that's why we're taking the precautions to make the area safer.
Amber Belmonte has been here all day helping to fill bags for other families.
People are scared. People's houses have flooded, and my husband and I have done remodels and stuff, and that's what we do for work. And we just watch so many people have to rebuild their homes and start over. It's scary. I don't know. It's emotional.
You've been helping Mom, making sure that everything's safe at home?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It's something else with these hurricanes.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
They've been flooding other people's houses, and we hope it doesn't affect our house and stuff.
The sandbags, the preparations are all in place for a reason.
Make sure our community's safe.
That is what it's all about. Volusia County has also enacted a curfew starting from 8 p.m. Wednesday to 8 a.m. Thursday. It's all to try to discourage traffic, a whole lot of it during the hurricane. And you better listen up. Don't break the law because you could receive up to a $500 fine and 60 days in jail. Now, of course, there's certain personnel that's going to be exempt. That's law enforcement, first responders, and of course, any employees of businesses, industries, as well as government. I'm Gail Pascal Brown, live in Volusia County. Now back to you.
All right, Gail, thank you so much.
Our 11 p.m. update came in. What does it say?
It shows that it is slightly weaker, still Cat 5, but the intensity has gone down a little bit, and also the winds have gone down a little bit as well.
But it's probably temporary. There's a little eye wall replacement, and every time that happens, the pressure does jump up a little bit. The winds, come down a little bit, and so I think we're going to stay in Cat 5 for a while. However, as we go to the cone now, the previous cone had this as a Cat 5 through Wednesday, very early morning. And then you see there, we still kind of have that. So we're not going to back down from the Cat 5 for what appears to be a good 24-hour period here. And then as it continues to get closer to the west coast of Florida, this is still going to come in as a powerful Category 3 hurricane. There's the winds there at 125 miles an hour. And the reason for this to, so to speak, weaken a little bit is we've been talking about the upper level wind shear, those strong westerly winds and a little bit of dry air. That's going to kind of force this and accelerate it to the east, but at the same time, you get those strong winds, and that has a negative impact on the cyclone, a good impact for us, but it's still going to be a major hurricane in landfall, and there are going to be significant winds across all of central Florida. We are under a hurricane warning, except along the eastern side of the peninsula. I suspect those will change here over the next 12 hours. And there's our storm system hugging the coast there of Cancun. You saw the drier air up towards the north. There's Milton right there. See that little wobble right there? That was the indication of that eye wall replacement. A lot of times when you see a wobble, there's an eye wall replacement. That is clearly what's going on right now north of Merida on the northern Yucatan Peninsula. Models tonight are clearly right over central Florida. The Euro and the GFS go from Tampa back towards southern Volusia County. Our other tropical models just south of the 408 here. We'll continue to watch and monitor those trends overnight tonight. So for now, as far as those advisories are concerned, no change. Inland, hurricane warnings, and then along the coast, hurricane watches. So here's what you need to know right now. Again, we get you into Wednesday night, Thursday, backside of the storm. We're watching the surge, 3 to 5 feet there. Winds pick up Wednesday, first bands coming in. Worst of the winds overnight Wednesday. Watching that severe weather threat overnight Wednesday and Thursday. Flooding, we've had a little bit of that today, Cam, and that's going to linger right through Thursday.
That's right. That's going to be one of the concerns here as we go county by county for you. Here's a look at the impacts for Marion County. The worst of it will be Wednesday night into Thursday with wind gusts well over 75 miles per hour with additional 6 to 8 inches of rain that we've seen are expecting on top of everything that we've seen so far. Expect power outages there in Marion County. Now, taking a look at Lake County, we are expecting some rough conditions here. Wind gusts well over 80 to 85 miles per hour. I think we need to update that to 85 now with the new data that's coming in. Sustained winds 60 to 70 miles per hour, and we are expecting rainfall about additional 4 to 8 inches. Again, sustained winds 60 to 70 miles per hour, gusts over 85, especially for southern Lake County. Take a look at Sumter County. We're expecting wind gusts over 85 miles per hour here as well. Sustained winds of 65 to 75 in Sumter County. Additional half a foot of rainfall expected here once it's all said and done and Milton moves out. For folks in Brevard County, additional 4 to 6 inches of rain expected. Also storm surge watch in effect for you folks, expecting up to 4-foot storm surge. Wind gusts over 75 miles per hour. Wind sustained at 55 to 65 miles per hour with the worst of the weather there late Wednesday into Thursday. For folks in Volusia County, we're expecting that storm surge, as Gail mentioned earlier, 2 to 4 foot storm surge possible. Max wind gusts over 75 miles per hour, sustained winds 55 to 65. And again, the worst of the weather, think about 10 o'clock Wednesday into about mid-morning Thursday. And for folks in Flagler County, additional 5 to 8 inches of rainfall on top of everything we've seen. Wind gusts well over 75 miles per hour, sustained winds of 55 to 65, with, again, the worst of the weather overnight Wednesday into early Thursday. And that is why it is reflected here on a 7-day forecast, a first warning weather day indicated by the red panels there. Finally, Milton moves out and we'll get a taste of fall and drier weather this upcoming weekend. Our continuing coverage of Milton continues after the break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
One of the biggest concerns from severe storms like hurricanes is the effects they have on our shoreline and coastlines.
Erosion is already a concern in several communities, with a renourishment project in the works right now in Flagler County and one possibly coming to Volusia County. WESH 2's Jesse Pagan is live in studio with the details. Jesse.
Yeah, Summer, Stu, that's one thing that a lot of scientists are looking at. One expert tells me one thing they're watching is how repeated storms like Helene and now Milton can keep erosion essentially constantly happening. I have here with me Mike Dane Olavarrieta, a coastal oceanographer based out of the University of Florida right now. As Mike Dane keeps an eye on Hurricane Milton as it nears Florida's west coast, she's making note of its track and its intensity.
Those are the main factors that are going to affect the winds, but also the water levels and the waves that affect basically coastal erosion. So the higher the water levels,
open Atlantic. But as of right now, the 11 p.m. advisory has just come in. Good news is Milton has slightly weakened from 180 to now 165. But either way, Milton is still a monster. The forecast cone continues to take it essentially from southwest Florida north of the Tampa Bay area sometime Wednesday late evening into the overnight hours. Here's what our in-house forecast models are highlighting with Milton over the next 48 hours. Likely going to be off our coastline Wednesday afternoon.
Make the switch to Wink TV at 11 for more news.
Off-Phase Electric would like to introduce our Generac Generator organization. We're third-generation electrical contractor. We're Generac factory-trained dealer. From our family to yours, no compromise in your safety.
Class-leading safety features at every turn. The Hyundai Tucson. Get 1.99% APR for 60 months on the Hyundai Tucson or Tucson Hybrid. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today.
COPD is harder on the folks around you, I think. It affects my wife terribly. And she smoked and she quit. And if you ask, take care of me. So, sorry.
Tobacco-Free Florida offers free nicotine replacement therapy to help start your quit journey. Call 1-877-YOU-CAN now.
Here's the Rock Solid man on the street.
I'm here with a werewolf. Mr. Werewolf, did you get your countertops here at Rock Solid because of the spectacular Halloween special? Get countertops at Rock Solid because Halloween special scary fall. That's the story of the street monsters. Along with people, get their countertops at Rock Solid because the Halloween special is so good, it's scary good. Back to you, Rock Solid announcer guy.
Rock Solid, Maples and Port Charlotte. Rock Solid, SWFL.com. Rock Solid, where 9.99 it done. See store for details.
Experience the white picket fence lifestyle with Sun State Fence. Sun State Fence can help you protect and raise the value of your Southwest Florida home with a variety of fence types: aluminum, wood, PVC vinyl, Simtech, and more. Find out which fence is best for you risk-free with Sun State Fence's free estimate. And odds are you won't be the only one happy when the job's done. Call Sun State Fence today for your free estimate and start living the white picket fence lifestyle.
Join W Yachts Your Green 3 at the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show for the U.S. premiere of the W43 by Vishnevsky Yachts. Made with their 35 years of boat building experience, no detail has been overlooked and has culminated in one of the most well-finished yachts on the market. We also present the elegant Yammering boat line. With over 50 years of success in Europe, these outstanding day cruisers will be sure to get you excited. Come see us and let your boating dreams come true.
Annual Fall Festival and Nighttime Glow Haunt, where everything glows, is coming to Springtime Farms Adventure Park this fall. There's a haunted maze, haunted trail, haunted hayride and pumpkin patch, a 70-foot jumping pillow, and much more, including tons of animals that you can hold, touch, and feed. Tons of activities are included with an all-day pass. Look up the Fall Festival and Haunted Nights at Springtime Farms Adventure Park in North Fort Myers for more information. Get ready for some daytime and nighttime fun only at Springtime Farms.
In Southwest Florida, hurricanes come with the territory. So does protecting you from them. It's one more reason more people turn to Wing, the weather authority.
Off-Phase Electric would like to introduce our Generac Generator organization. We're third-generation electrical contractor. We're Southwest Florida's Generac factory-trained dealer. From our family to yours, no compromise in your safety.
Thank you for watching The Night Beat. I'm Emma Heaton.
And I'm Russ McCaskey. Milton is currently a Category 5, and we're going to feel the strongest impacts on Wednesday into Thursday. Tonight, we have team coverage from across Southwest Florida. Our crews are on Sanibel, Manasota Key, and other areas still fighting to recover from Helene.
We're also joined by Weather Authority meteorologist Greg Rule and Chief Meteorologist Matt Devitt. We're going to start with Matt with the latest developments.
So the brand new 11 o'clock advisory is in, and just finally a slight bit of good news. The max winds have come down from 180 to 165. It's still a powerful Category 5, but you see that right there. Watch how the eye closes up. It's going through what's called an eye wall replacement cycle. That happens with powerful storms like Milton, but at its absolute strongest point, look at that. The pressure dropped below 900 millibars. Only 6 storms have done that in recent times in the Atlantic Basin. That includes the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean, and the Gulf. And Milton is, at this point, the 5th with the lowest pressure on record. So these are the stats, 165. The pressure since then has come up 17 millibars. Again, it's restructuring its core, going through that eye wall replacement where the eye collapses, then it forms a new one. And when that occurs, it does go through temporary cycles of weakening. And then once it builds that structure again, it could re-strengthen. And that could continue for the next 24 to 36 hours, but it is still projected to encounter some higher shear as well as some dry air as it makes its landfall towards Florida the second half of Wednesday morning. Southwest Florida still into the mix of potential landfall spots, just like Sarasota as well as Tampa Bay. The evening computer model runs have adjusted a little bit south, nothing drastic, but a little south, and that is what the National Hurricane Center just did in their cone. They kind of followed that slight adjustment, and their recent 11 o'clock advisory is just a few miles south. Again, nothing major, but a couple miles south. Hurricane warning remains in effect for Lee, Charlotte, DeSoto, Highlands, and Sarasota County. Storm surge warning for everybody along the coast, and that is because of the potential of life-threatening storm surge. No changes to the surge outlook during the 11 o'clock advisory. 10 to 15 feet, the current expectation for Sarasota County and all the way towards Tampa Bay. Locally in Southwest Florida for Charlotte and Lee County, 6 to 10. 4 to 7 into areas of Collier County. Let's revisit the timeline here. Bands of rain and storms Wednesday, hurricane force gusts at times over 75 miles an hour. As you can imagine, with the potential for power outages, isolated tornadoes, and once again revisiting that surge of 6 to 10 feet. The storm right now, in reference to us, is about 582 miles to our southwest. We are seeing areas of rain on already saturated ground, and the hurricane isn't even here yet, for sections of Collier County all the way into Lee County and then extending into Charlotte County. Let's take you inland to Lake Okeechobee, where the rainfall is pretty limited. I know that this time, and I get it better than anybody, it's stressful. And we got a lot going on. So what we're going to do in about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to bring you back. We'll go through the forecast, get you what you need to know, and that way we can calmly prepare you for the impacts from Milton.
And speaking of preparation, if you're not familiar with this map already, you need to be. One of the most important things about hurricane preparedness is knowing your evacuation zone. This map is from the Florida Department of Emergency Management, and all of the red that you see here is Zone A. It is the most vulnerable area to the storm. You can see that's many of our coastal communities. Of course, that's going to be places like Sanibel. We're talking Fort Myers Beach. And then also these orange zones here, those are also going to be an evacuation zone. That's Zone B. So that was places, I saw a little San Carlos community here. These, you might not know which evacuation zone you're in. We have a detailed way to figure this out under our Wink News website on this story. But today, Wink News visited Fort Myers Shores, which is Zone A. It's right here where the house icon on your screen is. We spoke with families about their plans for Milton.
This is number 3. We're done. We're just going to kind of just lift everything up off the floor and put it on tables and stuff and get the heck out of here.
We already passed a couple of hurricanes. Nothing happened to our house. So we lost power a couple of days. So we'll see what happens.
If you think you need to evacuate, 3 shelters in Lee County today opened. They're at Island Coast High School in Cape Coral, Dunbar High School in Fort Myers, and the Estero Rec Center in Estero. For information on shelters in Charlotte and Collier County and how to find your evacuation zone, just head to Wink. Well, parts of Manasota Key are already unrecognizable from the damage Helene did.
Yeah, and now Milton is, of course, on the way, and people are heartbroken thinking of what the future holds.
It is definitely scary. It's hard to think when you go to bed at night. You might not have anything when you wake up in the morning. So, yeah, it is a scary situation. And I feel sorry for the poor volunteers that are out there giving their lives.
Yeah.
Sad.
I'm so sorry, Judy. I'm so sorry.
It's been tough watching it.
Emotions are pretty raw. And the Night Beat's Maddie Herron joins us now live from Inglewood Beach at Chadwick Park. Maddie, many people are evacuating. How are they making sure they're ready for whatever's next?
One of the ways that people are preparing is by filling their sandbags with sand from this massive pile behind me. Now, Charlotte County has imposed an evacuation order on the barrier islands, such as here on Manasota Key. But a reminder that no amount of sand will keep you as safe as evacuating. With Hurricane Milton brewing, it's a race to get off Manasota Key for both residents and debris on the island.
They should get out and be safe. Get somewhere higher ground, because this is not high ground.
A message Bradley Sprague has for his neighbors as the Charlotte County Department of Public Works clears the roads of Hurricane Helene's destruction.
Everybody's just losing everything. That's why there's mountains of debris. It's not just debris. It's furniture, their belongings, their clothing, everything, all their appliances. And it's tough to take.
Sprague owns 8 homes on the south end of the island, many of which suffered at the hands of Helene. Now he's boarding up to salvage whatever left he can.
Not very confident, but we're doing everything we can.
Others on the island plan to use sand as their first line of defense. Jimmy Rowe is on the fence about evacuating after his mother is resting from a major surgery.
My mom just got out of surgery 2 days ago, so I'm kind of nervous about that. It's my issue is her, because she can't swim obviously right now with her arm all bandaged up. So we might evacuate, might not, kind of just playing it by ear.
Wait and see, a gamble that many others on Manasota Key are not willing to take with Milton.
Getting through one day at a time. So trying to make it through, and we'll leave here as soon as we get done.
If you are still on the island, listen up, because the Englewood Water District will be cutting off all water service to barrier islands like Manasota Key starting tomorrow at noon. And again, re-echoing what the county has been saying for anyone in this area, it's best to evacuate. Live on the Night Beat, Maddie Herron, Wink News.
Now get out if you can. All right, Maddie, thanks. Sanibel is already flooding from the heavy rain that we've seen over the past few days, and Milton is expected to bring to the island 10 feet in storm surge. County leaders have advised people living on the island of Sanibel to leave.
The Night Beat's Asha Patel joins us live from the Causeway. Asha, how do people feel about having to leave their homes?
You know, Emma, they feel nervous and they're thinking to themselves, oh no, not this again. But Sanibel does have that mandatory evacuation. They're asking everyone to leave Sanibel Island by tomorrow, 10 p.m. Tuesday, 10 p.m. The good news here is my photographer and I have been here for most of the day, and we've been seeing a lot more cars leaving the island. We're actually seeing one right now rather than coming back onto the island. But you know, the word evacuation doesn't make anyone feel good.
We need people to be off the island by 10 p.m. tomorrow on Tuesday.
And many people did just that. Monday afternoon, bumper to bumper traffic of people getting off the island.
I am evacuating. I am going to Miami, try to get out of Florida, or not out of Florida, but out of the cone of the storm. Because when we had that tropical storm that happened a few weeks ago, the whole island just got flooded.
People on Sanibel told me they're taking no chances.
So when they issue a mandatory evacuation, what kind of feelings run through your mind?
Oh my God, that's heavy. It's like, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my beautiful island.
City leaders say expect flooding and expect up to 10 feet of storm surge. On Blind Pass Beach, we saw mounds of sand as an attempt to stop the surge. FDOT says they're making sure the causeway stays safe and operational after the storm passes, so they added additional armor stone near the toll booth.
The guy upstairs takes care of us.
Mike Ferrero says he's making sure he got everything his wife asked him to before he leaves the island Tuesday morning.
It's well packed, well strapped, and my wife's clothing, that's the main thing. She said she's not in town, so she said, bring that home. I said, don't worry, honey, I'll bring it home.
And again, Sanibel has that mandatory evacuation, everyone off the island by tomorrow p.m. And the city is asking people to leave as soon as they can so there's not any delays or backups here. Reporting live on the Night Beat, Ash Patel, Link News.
Hi, Doctor. Thanks. We're getting some breaking news right now. Crews are responding to this house fire, Ellis Street near Pine Island Road. North Fort Myers told Wink News that there was no one in that house during the fire. Lee County Sheriff's Office was also on the scene. It's not clear how badly that home is damaged. We have reached out for more information.
The Wink News Weather Authority continues to track Hurricane Milton. When we come back, Chief Meteorologist Matt Devitt joins us with the latest.
Everybody that comes in does ask who did it, and I definitely love to say Cornerstone and that we continue to do more projects with them.
We went with Cornerstone for our kitchen based on their great results. The kitchen designer came out to our house and helped us with a beautiful design that we absolutely loved.
They were very professional, always kept everything clean. We felt very relaxed with all of that.
Cornerstone did a great job.
We're super happy with how it came out.
Is it possible to count on my internet like my customers count on me?
It is, with Comcast Business, keeping you up and running with our 99.9% network reliability and security that helps outsmart threats to your data.
My data too?
Your data too. There's even round-the-clock customer support, so you can be there for your customers.
Hey Billy, how you doing?
With Comcast Business, reliability isn't just possible, it's happening.
Switch to reliable Comcast Business Internet and security and get started for $69 a month. Plus, ask how to get up to a $600 prepaid card. Don't wait. Call or go online today.
I'm Sheriff Morris Young. Illicit marijuana laced with illegal drugs like fentanyl have destroyed lives. I know because I've seen it firsthand. Amendment 3 will save lives by making marijuana safe, regulated, and lab tested. Amendment 3 will protect our community from dangerous illegal drugs while allowing to focus on serious crimes. Vote yes on Amendment 3, the smarter and safer choice for Florida.
The pain level was over 10. There's days where I just sat and cried and asked the good Lord to take me. And my doctor recommended that I go to Good Feet and try the arch supports. And I took about 3-4 steps, turned around and went and sat back down and started to cry. It was the first time that I had no pain. I'm not an actor. I want people to know my testimony. I want them to know what arch supports can do from Good Feet.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
The first time I met with Dr. Wisenin, she asked me if I was monitoring that aneurysm, and I said, what? It reinforced that she did her due diligence. Becky was one of the medical assistants. Calliope always greeted me with a smile. And Alfonso did my lab work. Claudine did the MRI. She's so fantastic. I'm totally in awe of what these people did for me. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today to tell my story.
There are trucks, and then there's the GMC Sierra, available with the connected driving experience and the world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra. It's the truck. Get 0% APR on select 2024 Sierra 1500 models. That's over $8,900 total value when you trade in an eligible vehicle. Plus, no monthly payments for 90 days.
Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Let's get you the very latest on Milton, and look at that over the past hour or two. Yeah, not as intense or as powerful, but it still is a Category 5 storm. But the reason why that has filled in, eye wall replacement, we know that that's occurring because the hurricane hunters have been actively flying in and out of the storm. Now, the reason why it got so strong so quickly, it was a smaller storm. Water temperatures, not only now, but in its projected path in the lower to middle 80s, and it was also in an environment with lower shear. So here is the update. We've gone from 180 to 165, a little bit better, but still a category 5. Pressure went up 17 millibars, 914. Friendly reminder, lower the pressure, the stronger the storm, and it's pushing to the east at 9 miles an hour. That wind speed of 180 earlier, that made it the 6th strongest in terms of wind speed in Atlantic Basin history. The absolute highest, 190. It was at 180. The wind field right now, about 170 miles wide in diameter. It's still a pretty small storm, but what can happen is it's going through what's called an eye wall replacement. When it restructures itself and forms that new eye, the wind field does expand. So that is one of the downsides of that temporary weakening and then restructuring. So the wind speeds at 165, it will very likely be an intense storm in the southern and eventually southeastern Gulf of Mexico, but no overall change to the thinking that there will be some weakening, again, all relative, still a major hurricane and powerful, as it approaches the state of Florida, second half of Wednesday and all the way into Thursday morning. This timeline right here, that is Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and anywhere within this red area has the higher probability for landfall from Southwest Florida to Tampa Bay. But you saw in that intensity forecast that as it starts to approach Florida, there is some weakening because it starts to interact with higher shear. Well, what the heck is shear? Basically, as you go up in the atmosphere, that's what we like. That's what displaces the showers and storms away from the core. But by that point, it is already a powerful and established storm. It also could suck in a little bit of dry air on the western side. Computer models did shift a little bit, nothing drastic, south this evening. And you can see that trend. Here's a look at the consensus models. Orange was 24 hours ago. The red was 12 hours ago. And then recently is the pink. About 6 hours ago, it was a little bit closer to here. So there's some back and forth here, and we want to look at the overall average, as well as the trends and consistency. The 11 o'clock advisory, no change to the surge forecast in Southwest Florida, 4 to 7 in Collier, 6 to 10 for Lee and Charlotte, and 10 to 15 for Sarasota County, Tampa Bay. You guys have been great on social media asking me your questions, and this was a big one. So if you hear my voice in the kitchen or somewhere else in the house, come on in. Come, let's talk about this, because this is a big question. How do I calculate the storm surge? So here we go. We're going to use an example. Let's say the surge forecast is 8 feet. Now, when the National Hurricane Center releases those forecasts, it's based at sea level. So we're going to use 8 feet for the surge forecast at sea level. In this example, we are going to say that your is 4 feet. And that is a big component here. You got to know your elevation. So you deduct that 4 feet in elevation, and you are left with the lingering surge flooding above ground level at high tide. So let's use an example, Fort Myers Beach, right along the water. They would get every bit of that 8 feet because they're right along the water. They're at sea level. But if you go more inland, you deduct because of your elevation. I hope that that provides some clarity with the forecast. You know, not everybody's going to get 6 to 10 feet. You have to factor in your elevation. Tropical future track model as we go into time. There's the core, still very powerful. But then even this future track model as we go into time, you see how it will start to become more ragged as it does approach Southwest Florida as well as Tampa Bay. Here are the local expectations: 3 to 6 inches of rainfall for Charlotte County, 6 to 10 for surge, occasionally wind gusts over 75 miles an hour. And this is pretty straightforward. If the computer models trend more south, to increase these numbers. If it maybe trends a little bit more north, I'll plan accordingly, and I'll also revise the forecast. But we're going to go with this for now. But cannot stress that enough in black. Forecast changes possible depending on track. So second half of Wednesday into Thursday, overall rainfall 3 to 6 inches, surge of 6 to 10, hurricane force gusts over 75 miles an hour. Collier County start with 60, but we'll have to see how close it gets. But conservatively, 60 mile per hour gusts possible, surge of 4 to 7 feet. Even DeSoto County, can't forget about the Peace River, can get some water up there too in the southwestern corner. That's why I do have some surge possible. Gusts 75 miles an hour or greater. Isolated tornadoes, that's the nature of tropical systems. I had over 20 with Debbie, tornado warnings that were issued, over 20 with Helene. I would like a different outcome with this one. Let's hope for the best. Rainfall 2 to 5 inches for Hendry and Glades County. Power outages will be possible in southwest Florida. Gusts over 60 miles an hour at times. So I want to bring in now Greg Rule. He's got you covered. He's got a good look at the hour-by-hour forecast over the next 2 days. Greg?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And that's exactly what I want to do with you. I kind of want to quarterback you through exactly what you can expect locally for us here in Southwest Florida. Starting tonight at 11 p.m., our future track model highlights a couple of spot showers. That'll kind of continue on and off late tonight and into very early tomorrow morning. Certainly nothing widespread, not going to be a soaking start to your early Tuesday morning, but there will be a chance for a couple of isolated showers and storms. That likely changes late tomorrow morning through the early afternoon, where the first round of some outer bands will likely work their way through our area, could produce some locally heavy tropical downpours, some brief gusty conditions. And then things kind of go calm and quiet again tomorrow. I think tomorrow is kind of the transitionary period from the wet weather pattern, I should say, we've had over the last 24 hours to what we are now anticipating as Milton arrives close to sections of Southwest Florida. Wednesday morning, still anticipating these on and off again type of outer bands. This will kind of be the nature of the beast over the next 48 to 60 hours across our region. Wednesday late morning through the early afternoon, that's when things really start to get interesting for us here in Southwest Florida. We'll be about as close as we get to the eye of Milton as it works its way just off our shoreline. You can see rounds of outer bands producing moderate to heavy, locally heavy tropical downpours, and also embedded within these isolated tornadoes. That'll continue on and off through Wednesday afternoon into the evening time frame. Additional rainfall amounts now through late Thursday afternoon can be expected anywhere between around 3 to 5 inches of locally heavy rain. Our wind speed and direction, not much happens for your tomorrow. We'll see some outer bands, but winds won't pick up tomorrow during the afternoon and evening. Overnight Tuesday and into Wednesday morning, that's when the gusty conditions continue to pick up. And then Wednesday evening into the nighttime hours, I think this will be the main event for us in terms of wind speed, gusting anywhere between around 50 to upwards of about 70 to 80 miles per hour closer to the coastline. But the good news with Milton is this will likely shut off the rainy season for us here locally in Southwest Florida. So the rainy season, man, it's going to go out with a bang. Come Wednesday, isolated showers on Thursday. We're going red due to the lingering storm surge. But check out what happens Friday and into the weekend. Drier air, basically calm conditions, and high temperatures steady in the mid to upper 80s.
Coming up, an area hit hard by Helene is now gearing up for Milton less than 2 weeks later. When we come back, we'll bring you out live to Charlotte County.
Wink Weather's brought to you as a result of the winds.
Absolutely. Jennifer Hubbard, morning coordination meteorologist, NWS Tampa. I know you and your team are busy. I commend you all for keeping everybody safe. Thank you for coming on to Fox Weather. Well, more traffic here on the I-4 corridor as people are heeding evacuation warnings. This makes me very happy to see that people want to get to shelter, that they are listening to local officials, and they are getting to a safe place, whether it be a hotel, a friend's home, a family member's home, or just maybe one of the state-run local shelters that are open and available and ready for you to come. So please heed these evacuation warnings. Make sure that you're putting yourself and your family first. Don't be riding this out because we've never seen a storm like this. We just talked with the National Weather Service out of Tampa, Jennifer, speaking to the magnitude of this storm. Here we have with Hurricane Milton. So a relatively compact Category 5 hurricane. It has been undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle, and so we've seen a bit of an oblong movement with that thunderstorm development. But look how this storm grows in size. Expected to double in size on approach to landfall on the west coast of Florida. Sure, it might weaken, but the fact that it grows in size means that these impacts are going to be felt far and wide and for a longer duration for millions of people as it cuts across the Florida Peninsula. Tropical storm force winds extending 100+ miles from the center of that storm. Now, this is important. So every deviation matters when we talk about the track of this storm, ultimately the center of the storm. Now, I know we don't want to focus in on the cone because the impacts are felt far and beyond, but the consensus has shifted from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. this evening a little further south of Tampa. It's only by a couple of miles, but it matters on where the worst of that surge is going to be pushing in with this storm. You have the worst of that surge perhaps just south of Tampa, and it spares a very vulnerable populated area. But still, you prepare for 15 feet of surge and you listen to those evacuation warnings. Surge is a big piece to this, but let's talk about the inland impacts, not just from Tampa Bay, but across the I-4 corridor. Hurricane force winds expected to continue through the day on Thursday. Flood watches are up for several inches of rain. This is one of those storms you need to hunker down and prepare for power outages. Milton, the strongest Atlantic hurricane in 5 years, and it's taking aim at the Florida's Gulf Coast. We're breaking down more of the storm's life-threatening impacts when we come back. Stay with us. Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ.
Forecast to be a 4 over here. That's good news. It's weakening. That's sort of lessening the threat. And that is the wrong way to look at it. And they're able to carry that power, that momentum inland, right? They go farther inland. So a bigger storm, even if it's weaker on the traditional Saffir-Simpson scale, is going to be a potentially catastrophic wind event for large portions of densely populated Florida.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm meteorologist Jane Menard. You just heard from Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome, putting together a very succinct operation of a storm that is weakening does not mean a better scenario. A storm that is weakening and growing in size is still catastrophic. And that is something that you need to remember when we're talking about Milton. When you look at the 11 p.m. advisory, winds are down from the incredible 180 miles an hour we had from earlier this evening, 165. But the storm, it's undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle. And so while it might wobble in intensity, it's growing in size, and those impacts are going to be catastrophic to Florida. The Gulf Coast preparing for the worst when it comes to Milton. Traffic has been piling up as folks evacuate from the Tampa Bay area. You can see here, this is the I-4 corridor near Lakeland. They have opened up on this stretch of the I-4, that passing lane, I should say the shoulder for a passing lane to try to keep that traffic moving, getting into those safer zones, shelters, hotels. Call ahead for a hotel to get that reservation. Many are booking up right now, but don't think that that's your only option. Several shelters, locally and state run. In fact, many people are opening up their homes, friends and family. So please don't think you don't have anywhere to go, because you do. And even into neighboring Georgia, they're opening up their shelters for people who want to evacuate from Florida into a safe zone. So here's the enhanced satellite. When we look at this storm, it has been undergoing that eye wall replacement. So what was a tight, symmetrical, small storm is now growing in size. And when we look at the thunderstorm development of the last couple of hours, it did favor the east side. In fact, we saw this blossom of thunderstorm development on the northeast quadrant, but look what's beginning to filter back in once again. These thunderstorms here on the southwest side of that eye. And so is the eye wall replacement cycle coming to a close? There's no really telling on how long it's going to take for that to happen, but we know that it is going to complete. We'll have a bigger eye, a bigger storm, but then we continue to see perhaps that intensification. It's been making a brush with the Yucatan Peninsula over the last couple of hours. We've seen those tropical storm force, even hurricane force wind gusts enter in at the immediate coast. With this eye wall replacement cycle, hurricane hunters, they did measure a 35-mile cross eye, circular in orientation, closed in character, and that thunderstorm development on the southwest side that we just saw in the last hour, the last couple scans of that enhanced satellite, tells me that we're likely going to start to see that intensification once again. Still sitting in a pretty pristine environment, very warm waters, low shear. So pressure coming up, but we could see it fall back down when we look into the next 24 hours. Well, just over a week after Hurricane Helene ravaged Florida's west coast, Hurricane Milton has set its sights on the same area. Earlier, Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel spoke with Ian Oliver on Fox Weather Now about what we can expect.
I just got the warning on one of my phones, emergency alert from the Manatee County Emergency Management calling for an evacuation for level A, level B, level C, A, B, and C evacuation zones. Storm surge are saying 10 to 15 feet now. I just checked. The Hurricane Center is saying 8 to 12. Not that it matters, 8 to 12, 10 to 15. We don't want 10 to 15, but I'm not sure if that's an update. The Hurricane Center is going to pass around at 5 p.m. Eastern, or I'm not sure. I'm just telling you what I just got on one of my phones for Manatee County mandatory evacuations